Okay, so I usually like to start just by reading the introduction to my book, just because, yeah, I feel like it gives some context better than I would be able to just on the spot. So, yeah. In 1983, my 11-year-old cousin Laura was sexually assaulted and murdered walking home from a friend's house. She was buried in the cemetery down the street from my childhood home. She was so pretty that the words Miss America were written on her headstone. The women in my family told me and my primas the story about Laura's death like a bedtime story, a legend, a warning. A warning against being out alone, against being too visible or too public or too fast. Growing up was always spoken about like a curse in my family. Growing into a Latina body that would be hypersexualized, it was hard to see it as anything but. The curses for the women in my family were abundant. Anxiety, depression, and bipolar disorder runs in our family through genetics. PTSD runs in our family through shared experience. Sexual abuse, physical abuse, discrimination, and poverty. Still, when we are backed into our mind's darkest corners, we are not ill or in need of help. We are Latina. We are our mother's daughters. The internet will tell you it's true. There is an endless stream of content detailing how Latinas are violent, hysterical, melodramatic, fiery, spicy. How dating a Latina is a death sentence. How it takes a certain kind of man to tame a Latina. In this way, we are magnified and minimized, made hypervisible and invisible, made into two-dimensional, irrational creatures that shouldn't be taken seriously. We are reduced to bodies that must be controlled. I started the majority of these poems when I was an undergrad at an overwhelmingly white university. I was furiously unwell, in the throes of an untreated eating disorder and undiagnosed bipolar disorder, trying my hardest to suppress who I was and trying my hardest to pass as a quiet, unemotional, un-Mexican girl, and I was none of those things. I finished most of these poems after realizing the A at the end of Latina does not fit me. This was also after I got help, got medicated, learned to see myself as a person instead of a body, and found things to like about the person I was. It was after Laura's murder, which had gone unsolved for nearly 40 years, was reopened. In 2022, it was concluded that former Deputy Jim Harrison had abducted, sexually assaulted, and killed Laura. By the time of this discovery, Harrison had been dead for 25 years. My idea of what it looked like to be a good girl was long shattered by this point, but Harrison's identification as the murderer made it all that much clearer. Being a good girl was worth nothing in a world that did not see our bodies as capable of holding anything good. To be a good girl, one has to believe in the good guys, and the good guys, the deputies, wanted us dead. I'm tired of carrying all of the blame and the curses and the evil within me. I wrote this book to say that it is not ours to carry. Not mine, not Laura's, not the memory of Laura or the women tucking it into their stories. It never was. This book is a letting go. And then this first poem is called Miss America. It starts with a quote. So, quote, when these Southern whites see these pretty Mexican girls, they become excited. They are not used to girls so pretty. End quote. Eyewitness on the Zoot Suit riots. My mom was 16 when her boss's khakis fell to his knees, while he waited with a smile for her in the Domino's freezer, to see her scared, waiting to say, don't be. He had seen her, thick Selena lips and J-Lo hips. He'd heard about girls like her. My sister was 15 when a rusted pickup followed her all the way home, driver whistling, dreaming out loud of fistfuls of her long dark hair. My cousin was 11 when her body was found, naked and hollow in a ditch. The whole neighborhood sighed, said she was always too pretty. They engraved Miss America into her headstone. This next poem is called Piojosa. Piojo is like the Spanish word for louse, so piojosa means like lousy or like a girl with lice. So my abuelito says you aren't really Mexican American until you've had piojos. My mother says you aren't really Mexican American until you can't get rid of piojos. It's hard to forget the sound of a louse, exoskeleton cracking between your thumbnails and gushing its blood / your blood over your palm. You aren't until you bake and melt the synthetic fibers of your favorite sweaters in the dryer, or sleep with a scalp smothered in mayonnaise or olive oil or vinegar, or until you can't tell if you are killing the pests or marinating them to perfection. You aren't really Mexican American until you've given up and loved the beast that's sucking you dry. This next poem is called Love Song for La Llorona. I have been you, Llorona. In the back of classrooms and sprawled out on the sidewalk, stringy black hair, Sharpie-colored fingernails, and chewed-up hoodie strings crystallized with spit. I am you, Llorona. All women are born wailing, you and I just never stopped. We were meant to curse everything we touch, to cry, where have all the children gone? I lost them too, Llorona. You won't need to steal me in the night. I'll gladly walk with you and call mis hijos, mis hijas, mis hermanas, mis primas, mis amigas. Sweet, scabby-kneed girls, now younger than me. God help us find all we let die. Before your cousin Laura was a threat, she was a girl. Before she was a poem, she was alive. The story always goes like this. A pretty brown girl exists too much and ends up dead. The good man was, the bad man was, the devil was the deputy. In most versions of the story, the girl is walking to a home she shouldn't have left. Before these words were mine, they were my mother's, and her mother's, and everyone's mother's. In every version, they are sorry. I hope that when you're older, you will understand enough to forgive me. I hope even more that you don't. In the cafe, my ex says he doesn't have a type. I know she had a habit of lying in the street, and he fell in love with her in the headlights of a semi-truck that didn't kill her, but could have if she decided the game was over. He says she was fucking crazy. I say I used to play the same game, and he says, trust me, you aren't like her. I don't say that I understood the pleasure of wheels rattling my chest and feeling the weak organ that cares jerk awake. He says he doesn't know if he'll ever understand her. I don't talk about my suspicion that she and I lived the same life, origamied ourselves into the same polite shapes to seduce the white boy with clean sneakers and baby fat. Because there are as many bland boys looking for manic pixie dream girls as pill-bitter girls looking for someone to miss and eulogize them. I ask how was the funeral. He says he wouldn't know. He didn't have the tears or the words. So I say, take mine. I've kept them warm. I've got two more for you. This one's called In My Country. It's in response to this quote from the actress Sofia Vergara. In an interview, she said that like, in my country, all women are bipolar, and I think it's better that way. And I had a lot of feelings about that. So, in my country, the streets are lined with gold, plated hoops, tossed aside the night before. The sea shimmers like glass, shattered from windshields. Here, acrylics only come stilettoed. Mamacitas only come mercurial. In my country, there is no night without 1,000 slashed tires, and there is no morning without deflated women asking you to fill them. Where I'm from, we have no need for sun or moon because women are always burning some cabron shit in some backyard. The women burn and beg to be held. And don't all white boys have a bit of a pyromaniac streak? And don't we make you feel brave? And don't you think it's better that way? And then this last one is called Before They Were Found, 4V. I don't know how many more times I'll be able to handle the words she was found. V, we were both born afraid of ditches, the unseen evil hissing in weeds and muck. We'd bike down gravel roads to St. Agnes just to see her headstone. Laura Weezer, 1972 through 1983, Miss America. We'd pray for and to her. Dragged by our hair, our moms taught us about La Llorona, El Cocoy, and the ditch. And still, we both grew up thinking we could outrun our blood, outlive our weeping name. We fell in love easy, snuck out of bedroom windows, rode in drunk boys' cars. He tossed you out with garbage, leaking life. The cops said we found her, like you only existed once they chanced upon your empty body beside the road, abandoned, mosquito-bitten, and collecting sweet dew. You were not brought to light. We've been the light the entire time. And thank you so much.